Okay, it is Monday, August the 19th, and welcome to, believe it or not, already week 3 of Drugs and Crime. And I will be here somewhere within the next hour or so providing details and information about the assignments for week 3. I hope that you are learning a lot about this epidemic of drugs and crime, and I will be sharing information along the weeks to come about things that law enforcement are doing that's a little bit different from what has taken place in the past concerning this. This is based upon seminars that I went to this past week, last week. So I'll be sharing that information with you. So right now, let's start with the information and share my screen. And you can see the information that I've already told you about. You can see that the live lecture takes place 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, or it could be less than that, or sometimes a little longer than that. And you must attend the live lecture or listen to the archive. And then I'll give you a phrase that you need to get your points, and you must submit your key phrase or word by Sunday. If you submit it the following Friday or Sunday, you will have lost out, because each day you lose a point. So you start with 5 on Sunday, 4 on Monday, 3 on Tuesday, 2 on Wednesday, 1 on Thursday, and then Friday you're out. So it's important that you do this timely. So let's take a look at the announcement for this week. Policy and social trends, mental health and criminal behavior will be discussed. Chapters 3 and 4 of Drugs and Crime and Justice, the textbook. I sent you the PowerPoints for that already. Complete the activities: policy, social trend, drug use, abuse, and addiction. And then theories of addiction and drug identification activity. I'll just show you that before we adjourn. And then your discussion assignment, which your initial post is due tomorrow night. Social policies and trends. And then your reply post is due by Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And as I've said before, I encourage you to try to respond to more than one post. Finally, complete the course project, Heroin and Crime, and then the quiz that comes up, one of the few quizzes that comes up in this course. And they are timed. And I do suggest, as I've said before to students, do the quiz at the end of the week or by Sunday after you've gone through all the material and information. So let's take a look at the course calendar again. Open this up. There's the course calendar. And you see this is where we are with your reading assignment and your live lecture. And again, as I've said to you, you can just click on it, and then it tells you what I just went over a few minutes ago. Then your initial post tomorrow, reply post Saturday, your course project, and then your quiz is due on the 25th, okay, along with the key phrase. All right, so now let's go take a look at what we have here in this. Again, I encourage you to use this Drugs and Crime course guide to help you with your assignments each week. I've already shared the details of that with you. Now let's look at the course project for this week, Heroin and Crime. And I've already said time and time again in this course that you'll discover that there is a correlation between drugs and crime. And this breaks it all down. If you read what's presented. The requirement for this is that you're conducting research, a minimum of 3 pages. Remember, double-spaced, citations in the body and references at the end. It tells you to deal with the following information here. 3 credible, reliable resources other than the textbook. So that requires research, and I've already showed you where you could find some information. Do not use Wikipedia in anything in any of my courses. You will get points taken off. And then we can go to the rubric, click on the assignment, and it opens up and it tells you the due date and the rubric, and you need to view it because the rubric tells you exactly what to expect in terms of grade, what you have to do, what you have to write about. It's going to be a minimum 3-page requirement, double-spaced, Roman 12, citations in the body, references in the end, paragraph form, cover page, and here it is, all the requirements down here that are standard in all of your written assignments. Don't just throw a citation in either. Remember, you'll see a comment if you just throw a gratuitous citation in, which I've seen some students do. Then you will see a comment from me that comes back that says you're to provide citations in the body and references at the end, but it also says that citations should be provided throughout the body of the paper because citations provide support for the statements that are contained in your papers. Very, very, very important. You will lose points if I see that there are some statements that I read and it appears that based on what I read, and sometimes it'll tell me the source where you get that information or get an idea of where it came from, and you need to give credit. We already talked about the academic integrity policy. I ran that video for you at the very beginning of this course, so you know why I'm saying it. So it's very, very, very important. So follow the rubric. The rubric is the key. All right, and I show you over and over and over where to find that rubric. Okay, and then you have your discussion post, and then your quiz, a time quiz set for 30 minutes. I don't have to tell you how many questions. You should know already because you've had one already. And then your live lecture. Both of these are due as well. All these assignments are due on Sunday. If you have questions about this assignment here, again, reach out to me. Again, I remind you, click on the Module 3 tab in the Drugs and Crime course guide, which is in the written assignment as well, and has been put together to help you as students. All right? So that's what I'm going to say about the assignments themselves. So we're going to talk about the policy and trends of drug abuse, of addiction, theories of addiction, and drug identification activities. And then these are things I've already talked about already. So let's talk about this. What's going on here? Well, as you may or may not know, the government in the 80s came out with what we call the war on drugs. And what they did was they started cracking down on drugs in the United States, and various federal, state, and local laws were provided. And but there was some mandatory sentencing that took place for drug-related crimes, especially when you had a large quantity, as it was the purpose for the large quantity is not for personal use, but for distribution. And so because you were operating in a network, sentences were much stricter. And so anyway, one of the problems, though, that became came into existence was when crack cocaine. Now, many people who were busted for crack cocaine were not busted for dealing it or selling it, but they were users. And the unfortunate part about it is that those individuals who were using it were getting some pretty strict sentences, and the prisons and jails would fill up, and so and there were longer and longer sentences that took place. And so we have reached the stage of recognizing that the war on drugs is being lost. And almost all you guys understand that because drugs are coming in all kinds of ways. And it's not just from Mexico. It's coming in various places. And so anyway, the reality for, as it says, for incarcerating people for drug-related crimes doesn't reduce recidivism, because what happens is, as I said already, and I'll read it, it says right here what I've been telling you. A current topic of discussion is a connection between drug use, abuse, addiction, and criminal behavior. And I said that because of the fact that individuals commit crimes to get the drugs to support their habits. They're not trying to be criminals. They're just junkies. They're individuals who are addicted to the drug, and the drug caused them to commit the activities that result in violation of the law. And so it's like they're a prisoner to the drug in itself. In addition to engaging in criminal behavior, people use drugs to escape other things, just like people use alcohol. So we have to recognize and understand in our country the trend is to reach the stage where individuals are going to need help. And so because of that, there are various models of drug treatment that have come about. And we're going to share and talk about some of those that are effective, some of those that are not. And the three we're going to talk about are the choice, the disease, and the self-medication. Okay? So let's start out by talking about choice. Now, the choice model says that persons choose to use a substance and can simply choose to stop using it. If you believe that, you probably believe in the tooth fairy, because of the fact that, no, it is a very serious thing. It's, you know, as people try to stop smoking, you can put that on the same level and magnify it and make it even worse, where a person is trying to get off of drugs. Because when you try to get off of drugs, you go through this thing called withdrawals. And when you go through these withdrawals, it is your body is trying to detox or get rid of this stuff, but it's like a mule. It kicks you, and your body is craving for these drugs. And so therefore, to say that the choice model is good and that it helps is not true. And because individuals cannot just simply choose to stop using the drugs. All right. The next one is the self-medication model. And in the self-medication model, it is suggested that that people use legal and illegal substances to cover up problems such as anxiety or other mental illness. But the truth of the matter is that individuals, the drugs don't cause that. They have those things already in them. Some people, it says, develop mental health problems related to compulsive drug use, and some take drugs in an attempt to alleviate the mental health disorders. And so what happens is that individuals do the same thing that they do when it comes to alcohol. They use it to suppress the situation. But the self-medication model, whether it's a legal or an illegal substance, and as you and I both know, one of the gateway drugs that still we argue is very dangerous is being legalized as we speak in many jurisdictions, most recently Illinois. Colorado, I think, was one of the earlier states, and I think Massachusetts came on early on also, but now California has it. But legalizing the drugs still will create problems for individuals. Again, the drugs only complicate the situation that that individual has. It doesn't make it any better. It sends them like on what we call a trip and puts them out of touch with reality. So the self-medication model, saying that people use legal and illegal drugs, will find themselves in situations where they are, how should I say, given a chance because of the fact that they, I'm looking at something, here it is, okay. Okay, and so the point of the matter is that individuals find themselves prisoners of the drugs themselves, and the truth of the matter is that individuals are still going to continue to use those drugs. And so we get to the final model of addiction. And if you want to learn more about these, you can conduct some research, and you'll find more details about it. I'm just giving you a thumbnail sketch of it in the lecture today. But the disease model, now, it is pretty much where I am and where I think that even law enforcement is heading, as you'll discover when we get to discussing issues like deflection, and you'll see some videos about how law enforcement treating individuals who are hooked on drugs. But the disease model is based on the idea that addiction is a result of a chemical or biological issue. So the theory that punishing people for drug-related crimes without addressing the reasons for the drug use, and that's where I am, or addiction, will not likely change the pattern of criminal behavior. In other words, many individuals recognize that we are in an epidemic stage, and that it says here, public health advocates and medical professionals advocate that treatment should be part of any sentence for a drug-related conviction. Now, we're not talking about individuals who are distributing drugs. We're talking about the bulk of the people who end up being incarcerated for drugs, and these are individuals who are actually addicts, who are the customers for this. And so what we need to do is to get them cured of that. As I've said before, and you'll hear me talk about it a little later on in this course, is that if we were to remove the audience of drugs, that is, the people who buy the drugs, or at least cut into that by getting these individuals healed or delivered or set free from the drugs, then we will discover that in the instance where an individual is incarcerated and has that a condition of their sentence need to be to attend some kind of drug treatment program. And you'll discover throughout this course, as we move forward in the weeks to come, that individuals are very, 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 very easily drawn into this disease model situation where they end up taking drugs, even as little as starting on painkillers. And we'll again talk about that when we get to talking about the opioids more in detail. Treatment and behavior, it said, will be studied in Module 6. So that's the last one. But we will be covering how law enforcement is dealing with that in Modules 4 and 5 as well. So I encourage you to take the time to read the substance abuse and mental health challenges for interventions of this article that was written, and you can use that to help you with your research as well. Okay. So now you get here, and you have the theory that that's given here for drug identification, and you can go and you can review these flashcards to help you to prepare for the quiz and for the exam. So it talks about question 1 is, what is the theory that drug abusers can stop or control their use but choose not to? And so you go back here and you look at and you see dealing with the choice model, and you can type that in. Okay, and then look at these. Choice model. The answer was behavior or moral theory of addiction, but it still boils down to the choice model, and it gives you the specifics from your reading. So then you click to continue. The theory that drugs directly alter the brain chemistry through their effects on brain, which cause tolerance and withdrawal symptoms and produce cravings for the drug and increase the likelihood. And then you can go and flick that over, and they tell you to put in an answer first. So then just to give you something so you can get to it, you can type whatever you want to. I just typed the word drugs. The answer was medical or disease model theory of addiction that we talked about a few minutes ago. And then you do the same thing. The theory that certain personality traits make people more susceptible to drugs, and then you can look at, and if you want to put in self-medication, though that's not it, you're going to see personality theory of addiction. So you're going to get each of these that will help you to get ready as far as the assignment is concerned. All right, to get ready for the quiz and for the exam. But be aware of the fact that one of the things that you need to understand at the end of this is that there are many theories of drug addiction and drug abuse that are based on science, genetics, psychological and sociological. In the chapters that you read, you will be able to discover that information. That's why it's so important that you make sure that you go through those materials in order to prepare. And again, I've already described the connection between mental health and self-medication leading to substance abuse. And self-medication, individuals take drugs to escape. That's basically what ends up happening. And there is, of course, clear statement given over and over between substance abuse and criminal behavior. I've already provided that information for you. So then all you have to do now is look at the policies and social trends that we discussed between drugs, mental health, crime, and the criminal justice system. And you find that information in this section where we discuss the fact that people are incarcerated for the use of drugs more than individuals with the distribution of drugs, because the ones who, unfortunately what happens is that there are individuals who are what we call street dealers. They're not really the people that are what we call the big fish. They're not the individuals who are responsible for the drugs themselves, but what oftentimes they do is, for distribution, they allow them to sample it or use it. Unfortunately, then they become customers of themselves, and there are all kinds of crimes that are committed in order to pay back the money, oftentimes, that you owe to the drug dealer itself. Now, I said drug dealer again. I'm not talking about the street people. I'm talking about those people who are in the high rises or are behind the scenes, or that may be operating legitimate businesses and as a front to distributing drugs in the United States. So that's the deal here. So today, that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you about the different how mental health and criminal behavior tie in together. And so what I want to do is give you a phrase, and the phrase that I want to give you is very simply drugs and crime. That's it. Okay? You should get that one pretty easily. So complete the assignments. Any questions that you have, be sure to reach out to me. If you conduct some thorough research, you'll learn a whole lot about what we're talking about. Again, going back to the assignment here, I want to go back to it for just 1 second. Let me go back to the assignment. I want to show you something before I end. Here we go. These issues right here that are mentioned at the beginning, and it talks about the various theories where a person with a $20 a day addiction, look how much they spend a year, and unable to work, yet they need it to every day to avoid withdrawal and sickness. So what happens is they become victims, and they begin to use heroin as an anesthetic to relieve stress from them. So again, reiterating again, that you will discover from your research, once you look at it, why I'm in favor of rehabilitation in the criminal justice system, because if drugs were controlled, there would be much less crime in the criminal justice system, and you'll discover that from your research. So with that, I'm going to say good night to you, and I'll see you next week when we prepare for week 4. Now, I do want to say this, that at the start of next week, when we get to week 4, I will not be accepting assignments that are submitted for weeks 1, 2, or 3. Remember that. I'll mention that again. next week, even though by the time I have the lecture next week, we will have already started week 4, which is the second half. All right, so with that, I'm going to say good night to you. Have a good evening.